All right, cool. Welcome everybody to our August meeting. We'll send out more info on the September meeting later on, but we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. I think it'd be good to do some introductions since we've got a few people that are new on the call. So I'm Joseph. I think, well, now I've already exchanged hellos and greetings with all of you prior to the recording, but it's great to have you guys on the call. And those of you that are checking out the recording after the fact, thanks for doing that. And yeah, I'm going to pass the mic over to Hannah next, since she's a co-host here.
Hi, I'm Hannah Moore. I use she, her, and I'm a co-host here as well.
Yeah, so just to clarify, thank you, Hannah. I use he, him pronouns. Yeah, so if anybody else wants to introduce themselves on the call, you could just unmute and do so.
Hi, my name is Zachary Custis. I'm a second-year master's student at University of Miami. I met Joseph at PASIC, and I think I also met you as well, Hannah, at PASIC a couple years ago. And I don't know, I'm excited to be here. It's going to be fun. I was planning on being on the first two meetings, but I've had like a work conflict happen both times, which was really frustrating. But I'm here now, so yay!
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Lewis Raymond Colker. I'm originally from Texas, so Texas crew represent. And I live in North Carolina, so also North Carolina crew represent. I teach at High Point University and Winston-Salem State. My partner Alex is usually on this call, but she is currently probably doing 8s right now because block started 5 minutes ago. So for those who usually see her on here or like see her off the side of my camera, she's not this time, but the cat is around. And also maybe we call on people for the introductions so that we don't have the awkward thing. So maybe
Yeah.
Clay, you want to go next?
Good idea.
Hi, I'm Clay. I'm from Ohio, graduated from OSU spring 22. Yeah, glad to be here. Glad to see, meet new people as well as like see some familiar faces. So, hi.
All right, Graham and Benson, either one of you want to jump on?
I'll hop on. So I'm Graham Vigut. I actually just moved to Miami last week to start at Frost. So I'll be seeing Zachary around. And I just finished, I moved from Texas. I went to UNT for my undergrad. And I'm a Christine fanatic, as Joseph and I were talking about, but I'm excited to talk about all the rep here. Benson?
All right, and then Benson, if you want to unmute, or no pressure, or if you want to lurk, it's all cool.
Yeah, I'm Benson. I'm a second-year master's student in Delaware now, but also from Texas. Ooh.
Great. All right. So we got 4 items on the docket today, and I'm going to present, Hannah's going to present, Lewis and Clay are also presenting. So would anybody like to go first? I've got recordings pulled up already, at least the YouTube videos that were sent. So yeah, anybody want to go first?
I can go first.
All right.
Okay, so the piece that I submitted was Fear of Music Bow Bells by Lee Hinkle. So this piece is for solo orchestral chimes and electronics. Specifically, it's like a soundscape that's going on with it. I found this piece because I was actually looking for pieces for my recital, and like a bucket list piece for me has always been like a solo chime piece. And so I just looked on YouTube and searched up solo chimes. And after like scrolling through a bunch of stuff that was not solo chimes, I found this work. I think it's really cool. I think all of the textures that Hinkle uses are very different than how we normally hear chimes being used. And I think it's a really effective work. So to get a little taste of it, can we hear like maybe a minute in?
Yeah, just give me 1 second. Somebody else is joining our call here. So
Cool.
let's see. All right.
Hey, Jacob.
Welcome. So we're jumping in. Thanks for being here, Jacob. We're gonna jump into some listening here of Fear of Music, Bow Bells. Hannah's kind of walking us through this, so glad you're here. All right, Hannah, you said 1 minute in, right?
Yeah.
Great. Sorry, bear with me here.
Cool. Can you now move like 30 seconds from the end?
Yep.
Like there's good. Great. So there are two things I wanted to say about this work before we open it for discussion is that I really like, at least in the recording, how mixed the tape is with the performance. It's really hard, even until the end, to really tell which is which. And then the other thing I wanted to say about this work is that it's based on, it's called Fear of Music because it's based on this phobia that somebody had of music, where every single time music would come on, they would come down with an ailment like a few hours later. So, yeah.
I have a fear of playing chimes, like in all contexts, because it's just like my least favorite thing to play. But I think this piece is like absolutely, like, I don't know. I love that I want to play it because I have an element of fear associated with playing chimes, and I just love like everything about it texturally. I think it's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I will go on the record as like not being a huge fan of chimes most of the time, because I feel like typically, and this piece is an exception to it, like there's generally such a narrow range of color that we get in like band or like marching band uses of chimes. And the other thing is it's so often used as like death toll or church bells or like clock chimes that I always hear it like used programmatically and then I like kind of lose my suspension of belief. All right, I'm just like, I'm listening to a piece of music, I'm in it, and there are the chimes. So I think the two things that I like about this piece the most are A, like the different colors, like the scrapes, but also the fact that it does play on that, and that it's like, I feel like electronic pieces can have the same kind of thing where it's like you hear a soundscape and you're like, oh, I know what they're talking about. This is about this thing. But having like real chimes and church bell chimes all interwoven, it's almost like fourth wall breaking levels of knowing what you're supposed to be hearing and thinking about. So I think that's cool. Definitely one of my favorite chime moments.
Yeah, I think that's
Uh,
also what makes it. Sorry,
ahead.
Joseph.
No, you're
I
fine.
I think that's what also makes it so confusing about like which part is the electronics and which part is the chimes, is that we have this bias towards chimes sound like this and they do this thing. And so when the electronics come in, you're like, wait, which is what? Even though you can tell visually which is what.
I put in the chat this Michael Dougherty wind ensemble piece called Bells for Stokowski. Has anybody played this or like heard it before? It's like the only instance of, well, I shouldn't say the only. It's like one of the very few instances of like wind ensemble band chime writing that I'm just like, this is mind-blowingly amazing, like beautiful music. And it's, you know, it's more than just the chimes, it's the piece, but just something for you to check out if you're looking to get hype about chimes outside of the Lee Hinkle piece. Is this piece published, Hannah? I didn't do any digging, but
So I looked on his website, and I think you have to email Hinkle if you actually want to play it. I could not find the actual score. It's also though his newest work from his website. So
I have a
It kind of makes
question.
me.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You, you can go ahead. Or I'll say it real quick. It makes me want to write a piece for like soundscape of rain and rain stick.
so Hannah and I have been talking about this same thing because I've had for like 3 years the idea to write a piece for solo, like not wind chimes in the Gene Kaczynski piece that we'll talk about later, but like Mark Tree. Because if you play them with triangle beaters, you get like definite pitch. I guess you get definite pitch if you just move them around, but like it has like can have like a scalar, like highly melodic capacity to it. And I think doing that like wind chimes and tape would be kind of cool. So you should do it. So sorry, Graham, you were going to say something.
I was going to ask, as far as like performance practice of this piece, is it there's no like click or in-ear like cueing, right? It's just kind of you have to be able to keep at a certain pace throughout the piece to line up with the track. There's no like definite lineup moments.
it doesn't seem that way. Granted, I don't have a score. Once I buy the score, which I will be doing, I'll let you all know. But for now, it doesn't seem like there is anything like that.
One thing I was curious about too as I was watching this, there were like two of the chime tubes that sounded like there was some kind of like buzzing or something, and I couldn't tell if that was like the chimes were like prepared for this piece, or if that was just like maybe he was playing on like a set of chimes that just sounded bad or just old or something. I don't know. Because I couldn't tell like from how it was composed, like if it was like intentional, like he was doing that on purpose. I don't know, like doing it on purpose at all. I don't know.
I almost like I couldn't tell, back to Clay's point, that anyway. I feel like I've gotten that sound out of chimes before. So I kind of have a suspicion that it's like it is some sort of like not technique, but like a sound that you can get inherently. I don't know. It also makes me wonder like if he ever explored with, have you guys ever like gone up to a set of chimes and just like tap the top where the like it's hollowed out with your fingers and it makes like or like it's like a really cool sound, I think. And I'm like, that probably wouldn't carry across in like a recording or anything like that, but I don't know. It's like the weird things you can do with chimes. Back to the tape thing where it's like it doesn't line up. Is it just like audio cues, or like how do you do that kind of thing? I feel like, and we talked a little bit about tape pieces in our first discussion group. But I feel like I personally really like tape pieces that are like that, where it's less about like exact lining up and more about like a soundscape or, some audio cues maybe, or just kind of like treating it as like, I don't know, even more of a I don't know. You guys get what I'm saying. And Mark Duggan has a piece for Glockenspiel called Jubilee that has that similar kind of vibe. I have a recording of it. Shameless plug. It's not perfect, but you can go listen to it. And then Tim Adams has a timpani solo that one of my students is going to play, called Lives Lost, Remember Them. And it's for like solo timpani and soundscape. And it's like very understated on the soundscape kind of thing, but it's just kind of this underlying like gravitas behind it. So just if you're curious for more pieces like that with tape. So
Yeah, I find playing with tape or like compositions with tape, it kind of goes two ways for me, because if the tape is something that feels like it's just replacing like a ensemble, like if you're playing something and the tape is like a bunch of rhythmic drums that you play along with, it's like, oh, well, wouldn't that be more interesting and more fulfilling to play it with people or something like that, rather than if for me to like buy into like a tape piece really is for the tape to have some element that couldn't be like performed live, or like some element where it's like needs to be this electronically manipulated or produced thing. Then like Jacob and I, we played do you guys know Sage Renee's Attraction solo? Because
Yep.
he has the new arrangement for septet, and like we played it last semester at UNT, and it was I don't know, I was just like, man, this is way cooler than just hearing like chum kum kum on like a recording sort of thing to kick it off. But I mean, there's obviously things that require electronics to do, and really like field audio recording sort of style like that, where you can't bring a whole rainforest into your concert hall or whatever.
I think that's a great point, Graham. And that's actually something like I compose on the side. And that's something that I've kind of been thinking about is like if I'm kind of interested in adding electronics into what I compose, but I kind of have similar feelings where I'm like, if I could write it for multiple people, wouldn't that be better? But I recently had a discussion with do you know Mackenzie Squires? She was on the tour with us last year. So I was talking to her, and she was telling me that just like with some of the situations she's been in, she's wanted to play duets and it hasn't been a possibility. And so what she'll do is she'll like record herself playing one of the parts and then play the other part live. And so that kind of made me take a step back and rethink electronics, because I think in one way it does give individuals who may not have a bunch of players in their department that are willing to play, or maybe they're not at the level yet where they could play, it still gives the individual an opportunity to play pieces that are with others.
Yeah, absolutely. It like, it gives you a chance to play with a bigger sound and play with a larger ensemble or whatever by yourself, which, we've all been in that moment where it's like, oh man, it'd be great to play this concerto with an orchestra, but I'm just me. So
all right. Well, any other thoughts on the chime piece? I mean, I don't know. Did you find any other like pieces for solo orchestral chimes like at all?
No, this is the only one that came up on YouTube. I do have to do a little more searching. I'm gonna like look on Google and look
Yeah.
through some databases and see if I can find any, but there's
You
a
should
lack
write
of rep.
Yeah, write the next one, Hannah. Yeah, that's sick. Cool. All right. Who wants to come next? I don't mind going, but Lewis or Clay, if either one of you wants to jump in, you're welcome to.
I'd be down to do the Mallet Quartet next.
Sweet.
I'll see if I am able to present with this. Okay, it'll be a little meta for a second. Okay, so a little bit about this piece. This is, can you all see the score and the YouTube
Yes.
Okay. So it is 4 movements for Mallet Quartet. It is the 2-vibe, 2 marimba setup, and they're not strictly miniatures, but they are like pretty concise movements. Each one is a couple minutes or a couple pages of music, and then it's got a lot of stylistic variety. So a couple of the things that I like about this piece are, it's modular, and that you can have like a freshman or sophomore mallet quartet play just a couple minutes of music, maybe to supplement some other music. And then also, I like that it is an entire mallet quartet that only sounds like Reich for like 1-2 movements max. So I will play maybe like 15-ish seconds of each movement.
I can't
I'm gonna-
hear it.
Yeah, I can't hear the audio either. There is a box you have to check to share tab audio through
Okay.
Google.
Let me try that then. Is that working?
Yep.
All right, I'm going to jump ahead to the second movement. I think that's the longest movement as well. Third movement is over here. I'll back it up to start. And then fourth movement, which is my favorite. So there's just a little bit of that one. Anybody have any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So what does it say in the score about implement in the fourth movement?
Yeah. So it says cardboard dowels, which, are you familiar with that implement at all? So Dave Molk is kind of like one of the founding fathers of that. I don't know if he's the first one to use it, but he's the person whose music I think of when I see the cardboard dowels. And Ninfea Cretwell-Reed was a PhD student at Princeton when she wrote this. And so this was on a Princeton Sound Kitchen concert. And so I think it's very much like Princeton composition cinematic universe to go with the Dave Molk cardboard dowel mallets. But he uses them a lot for steel pan and for vibraphone. If you know, Glow, I think is the right one. All of his pieces have like this kind of sound, or maybe it's Hush. I'm blanking on the name. Murmur. Murmur is for 2 vibraphones. It's a quartet, and it has the like cardboard dowel mallets, and you play with your fingers, and you like drop ping pong balls on the bars. And so I think just like getting different types of sounds out of the vibraphone that are not just Balter Greens.
Yeah, I love the cardboard tube sound because Andy Akio also uses that occasionally, like on Parker and I and things like that. And you can get it by like just literally tearing apart an old coat hanger. I've like held on to the same ones for like 7 years because I don't have many cardboard coat hangers anymore, I guess. But I really like the quartet for a lot of the reasons you said before we even listened, Lewis. Like the fact that the movements are short and like so stylistically different in some ways. Like I was like, yeah, I get why in our last meeting you were like, oh, I'm really excited we're talking about Mallet Quartet and Reich because I have this piece to show you, which like I hear the Reich and I see it, but at the same time, like the entire second movement, especially, I'm like, this almost reminds me of like a piano four hands duet. Where vibes and like the clear dichotomy between the two sets of keyboards, but even on this like 15-second listening of the second movement in particular, it almost reminds me of like I can't remember what movement of Children's Corner it is, but the snow is dancing. It kind of gives me that vibe, and I just really like the piece and how the mood changes from every single movement, but it's clearly like the influence of Reich and the Mallet Quartet is there front and center, just shortened and simplified. So
Yeah, I liked what you said about the piece being kind of like modular, I think was the word you used, and like you could have, different. I was thinking about like how you could play the whole piece, but have different groups of students play like different movements because I think some of them are definitely a little more technically challenging from like a rhythmic sense and a technique sense than other ones. And I feel like it could be a really cool piece. Like if you're to program it for a concert, to not play it all at once, but like scatter different movements throughout the concert. So you have like X piece here, and then you have a movement, and then X piece and whatever, and then you come back to it with a different movement with a different group of students or the same group of students. And I think I really like the piece, and I agree with everything that you guys have said so far.
Yeah, I would also add to what you just said, Clay, that I think if you were to take that approach, depending on like the level of your students, I think you could possibly like use that in like a high school setting if it's the right high school, because each movement is short enough that I think they could learn it. And it would be a great moment for high school students to learn about chamber skills.
I found the implements really interesting because like the cardboard dowel, it gives me the sound of like when you put like a folder on the vibraphone and you put it, but it's you can use the entire range of the instrument. Where if you use a folder, you'd have to put it almost on the entire instrument to get that kind of sound, that kind of like dead thud, So I found that really unique.
And who do we owe the folder to? Pop quiz? Christopher Dean. Maybe. I don't know if he coined it first, but Morning Dove's on it. Anyway.
It was the original Bartok. No, the Elliott Carter Eight Pieces for Timpani. That's what it used on it.
Oh, okay.
So if you're looking for the exact sound, find something that's that many pages thick.
I love that. When I was listening to the Mallet Quartet for the first time, I don't know if you guys ever do this, because I know it had like the tempo titles or like more traditional titles for each movement, but I always kind of like to ascribe a character to it. So the third movement I really liked, and I kind of was like, this is kind of like a weird like wonky waltz or like some kind of like a dance movement within the quartet. And I really like especially how the composer treated like dissonance across the ensemble and how dissonance resolves. Particularly like, maybe there's dissonance hanging over from a vibraphone, and then occasionally you'll hear the marimba like resolve it in the same octave or like an octave lower. And I think the orchestration of it is like magnificent, specifically in that movement.
Yeah, I also think there's something to be said about there being rhythmic dissonance also kind of in the first movement. Because the first movement also really caught me off guard. Normally you start a mallet quartet and I was expecting like this big opening, and then you get this movement with a lot of space. But going back to the rhythmic dissonance thing, I think the dead strokes kind of cause there to be tension, because when I first heard it, I said, oh, is that a mistake? And then I was like, no, that's what's written. So I think that the composer does a good job playing with dissonance, both rhythmically and harmonically.
I'll just plug one other of her pieces to, so the way that I heard of her is she won a commission by Lindsay Eastham. If you know her from World Percussion Group and East Hama Duo, really, really great vibraphonist, especially. And it's a piece it's a 4-movement work for vibraphone and multi called Play Chest. And so it's for vibraphone, bongos, 5 wood slabs, a suspended cymbal, and a kick drum. And so there's a lot of really interesting challenges in that. I started learning it January 2020 and did not finish it because I wound up not having any of those instruments except for like maybe a kick drum. But it's got like 5 mallet writing in one of the movements and some tricky like foot coordination trying to operate an air turn and a vibe pedal and a kick drum all at the same time. So if you're interested and looking for more like kind of wonky, interestingly written and definitely not by a percussionist, kind of in a good way, pieces, I would check out her website and that piece in particular.
Lewis, have you programmed this mallet quartet at all, or are you going to?
I am thinking about programming probably the 4th movement this semester. I'm like working to confirm my registration for ensemble because the add drop deadline is the Friday at the end of the first week of class, and also High Point you can take percussion ensemble not for credit.
Oh.
And so I get a lot of my membership of like kind of hunting down people and being like, can you play in percussion ensemble 1 day per week? And they're like, I guess I could come in on Wednesday. I like work on Monday, Friday. And then I have that person and whoever signed up for the class.
Mm-hmm.
And like, then I have a quartet rehearse on Wednesdays. And
Cool.
then like, they only have to be there 1 day a week, but it's tricky. I think the other thing too is that the 4th movement, the marimbas are in treble clef the whole time, and so we have a like 3-octave xylorimba situation. This is like, I feel like I talk about this every week, but I can't do traditional mallet quartets because we have 1 5-octave marimba,
Right.
and 2 vibes. And so I think I can get away with doing that, and then we can do the doubles. I also just confirmed that we're not going to be like in the chapel where we've had our percussion ensemble concerts, which has been insane because it's super ringy and there's no space for anything.
Oh no.
Be in the Black Box Theater this year, which I lobbied for really hard.
Nice.
And so I think this will be like the semester to do a big mallet quartet, and then be like, see, we couldn't do this in the chapel. We can never go back to the chapel ever again.
Yeah.
In the black box.
I might buy this and like pick one of the easier movements because I've got some younger folks that I think could maybe handle the vibe parts, and then I have my 2 seniors. So I think that might be kind of nice. So I'm glad you brought this one in.
I think the 4th movement is probably the most approachable out of the 4, just in terms of technique and rhythm and like harmonic language. The first 3 all get just a little wonky in ways that I think would be hard for people to self-police.
Yeah.
You can hear that major second between the hands.
I did have just a very quick question, but do you know why this is unlisted on YouTube?
I do know why this is unlisted. So besides the fact that there's definitely like some cleanliness errors. Yeah. So the Princeton Sound Kitchen is like Princeton composers write for this concert every year, and they just have like a different new music ensemble come in and play. So I think this last year it was Hub New Music. And like the year before it was Jack Quartet. And I think it's just kind of a rotation. But that is Evan Chapman's like playlist that he did. Like he came in, documented all the pieces, and made an unlisted playlist and gave the composers the links. I think Nymphea had this video listed at one point and listed it in the playlist link. And so I have the playlist saved, which I definitely would never share in the chat right now when I find it. Because it's got like, if you were at PASIC in 2019 and hit the living room music booth, then I'll have to find my playlists. Here we go. So like Alyssa Weinberg's Ember 2 is on there, and there's a couple of other good ones. Yeah, view full playlist. But I think it is just like documentation, but not professionally.
Yeah.
And I don't think so probably wants it as part of their like internet.
Right.
Because it is more of a reading session.
Right.
Concert. Kind of like they do at SOSI. But yeah, there's pieces in here by Connor Olivesway, Molly Heron. That piece is really cool. Cleek Schray, Kendall Williams, Melodic Concept 3, which I think that is the recording that he lists publicly. Ember 2 is a really good piece, and then Anna Metter's Interstice. So a lot of those are on my like big wish list for programming for percussion ensemble, especially because it's quartets.
Yeah, I saw that and I'm like, I know why I unlist YouTube videos. But yeah, I was just like, this is so percussion. Like what's going on? So cool. Yeah, I always love the lore behind those kinds of things. So yeah, any other thoughts on the quartet?
I just have one thing to say. Lewis, would you mind sending the link to Play Chess? Because I have been looking the past few minutes and I can't find it on her website.
Me as well.
Yes. I'm not sure why that is. I think maybe it wasn't even listed on her website when it's not on there. I think like I saw that Lindsay Easton posted on Instagram and was like, Nymphea wrote me this piece. I just premiered it. And then I emailed Nymphea.
Okay.
But yeah, I can't find a link to it anywhere. And I don't think there's a recording of it anywhere. She does reply to her email kind of slowly, but she does reply. So if you are interested in checking it out, I would just write to her. I think it was like $20 or $30 on PayPal to buy the piece.
Cool.
So super affordable, and she's really nice, but I think like she's more in writing orchestral pieces in the UK and not like selling solo percussion scores in the US. type of mode. And so I think it's a little bit more of an afterthought, honestly, just from a business and like mental management perspective for her.
All right. Clay, I'm going to jump in since your piece is mostly metals and mallets and super cool. I listened to Gene Kaczynski like all morning. But so for those of you that weren't on the call last month, I brought in this collection of timpani solos from C. Allen that were for just like 2 drums, because like timpani rep, there's a lot of good. Well, there's some good, and then there's a lot of like hokey, maybe not the best stuff out there. So I wanted to like continue the timpani talk a little bit this week, just because it's something I struggle with, like finding rep for. And so my duo partner Kramer, who I tried to get on the call this week, played this piece on his master's recital, Prelude for Timpani and Percussion, by Sam Carullo. Sam was a classmate of mine at Belmont when I was getting my master's. He was an undergraduate student. He's now in his last year of his residency of his DMA at Peabody. They have like a crazy system there. He was telling me about it, and it just sounds like a lot. But Sam's a really cool guy. He's percussionist. He's got a marimba duet published with C. Allen that's pretty good. And he wrote a multi-piece for me that uses crosswords. It's fun stuff. And he's just a cool guy. Tried to get him on the call today too, but he said he might be working. So Sam, if you're listening to this, we appreciate you and your contribution. Before we listen, Sam did send me a score for this. He said that if anybody's interested in playing it, just send him an email. He's in the email thread, so you can reach out to him, or if you want me to send you his email, I can. So Prelude for Timpani and Percussion kind of has 3 distinct influences, at least from what I can remember from Sam and Kramer's discussions of it. One of those is bird variations, just from a pitch content standpoint. Sam was playing it on his junior recital, and he wrote this timpani solo for his junior recital. So he kind of borrowed some elements to create a little bit of a through line, I think, and it's like a cool pitch collection. The next, which is kind of, I think, a little bit more on the nose, is Spine, the Michael Lorello, which you'll hear in like the orchestration and even, I think, a little bit of the rhythmic motif. And then just in title and in orchestration, the Christopher Dean Prelude for timpani. I can't remember which number it is, but shame on me. So yeah. I want to play a little bit of it for you, just maybe the opening, and then we can chat about this. But you guys have the, again, this video is unlisted because the quality is so horrible as far as the video goes. The audio's, it's fine. But this is from Kramer's master's recital at Belmont. Here we go. And that's like half the piece, so I'll stop sharing for now. So yeah, it's very short, and very drummy. I will say from a programming standpoint, Kramer put this right after he played improvisation. So he did an Elliott Carter and this, which I think is a really cool thing to do if you can find like another timpani solo to pair it with. Just kind of, I think the vibe of his recital was kind of something standard, something new. Makes it sound like a wedding, I guess, or whatever. But it was kind of a cool programmatic element to like start with improv and then into this, and there's a connection with school and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I can show you the score maybe a little bit later if you have any questions about it. But yeah, any thoughts about Prelude for Timp and Perk?
I'm hitting myself for not clocking the spine reference, because then as soon as I heard the first note, I was like, oh, got it. I did catch the vignao language, and I thought that was interesting, and I'm glad to hear that it was intentional, because I feel like sometimes percussionists are just like, I've discovered the octatonic scale. And Doug Perry has a really great tweet about that too. It's actually percussionist composers, or like composer people, like, oh, I've spent all these years studying my craft, blah, blah, blah. And like percussionist composers, I have discovered the Lydian mode. And like, I'm in this tweet and I don't like it, but I think it's a really cool fusion of things, and I think it's a really cool stratification of sounds with like high sound, low sound. I played I'm blanking on the composer's name now, but like Stanley Leonard timpanist. I played a duo of his for trumpet and timpani, and it was very easy to balance and play as a duet because it was like high and loud, low and loud. And I think sonically, this is a really cool like expansion of a timpani solo.
Yeah, I'll say to that point, the trickiest thing was finding implements. And I think once Kramer, he like wore down like a felt timpani mallet to the point where it could actually like get articulation and sound good on crotales. So then it was like, cool, we're good. But like wood was just like a little bit too much, maybe. This hall is also like incredibly like wet and resonant. And it's great for playing marimba, not for playing drums necessarily. But yeah, the implement was like hard to find out at first, but then it kind of works itself out. Yeah. And there's tempo blocks. I know we didn't get to that part in the recording, but you have to, Kramer, I think, circumvented that by playing with the shaft of the mallet instead of like the tip of the stick. So yeah.
I liked how much this piece like seems like a multi-solo. Like I know it's not, because it has the moments where the timpani are featured and there's some really nice timpani licks in there. But I really like how ingrained everything is. It's almost like, a multi-solo for vibraphone and other things. Like they're treating the timpani not like it's its own thing, like it's an instrument that can be played with others. I also really liked, as another thing, the hand independence, because one hand is very much playing the timpani and the other hand is very much playing everything else. And I think that is like a great thing for a student who maybe needs to work on that a little more.
Yeah, I'll say to your point, like this is how he scores it. You guys can see the score and everything, right? So there is that he actually puts it into 3 different staves, a la Stravinsky, Soldier's Tale, and Mio, except not 13 instruments, of course. But you can definitely see it's like, okay, cool. You know that you're going to be doing this separate from the other hand and all that jazz, to your point, Hannah. And even like notating like this, I think also kind of adds to your point. Yeah.
I think the pairing between the crotales and just like, what was it, bongo, right? And timpani was so unique that they don't pair that often with one person, it almost made it sound like multiple people, or like film score percussion section, at least to me, because I don't really imagine that universe where you're playing those collection of instruments with one person. So I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Kind of going back to what Hannah said, I think what I liked about it is that it does kind of, it feels kind of like a multi-solo, but also kind of feels like a timpani solo, because I feel like, at least for me, the problem with timpani solos is that the drum has so many limitations to it. Like in a solo context, you either just like lean into the limitations and just like write something super simple or kind of samey, or like, you know, you do whatever you can, or you do like an Elliott Carter thing and you do everything you can with like extended techniques and whatever to make the drum sound different. And I think that just adding a few extra sounds that aren't timpani, like the bongos and the crotales, just makes it so much more interesting and feels so much more unique than just like rock beat on timpani, boom, boom, ga, boom, 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 ga, or whatever, you know. And I really like that about it.
You should check out, if you like rock beat on timpani, go check out Tangents by James Campbell. Any of you know that chart? Yeah, it's pretty sick. Yeah.
I agree, Clay. The like the musical ideas and motifs in this, I think it's very great to have the bongos and crotales in with it, because on timpani it might just be a bit much and kind of old and washy sounding to me.
I couldn't quite pull this out from the recording, but what is the pitch relationship between the timpani and the crotales? Are there tuning changes? Is it mostly similar?
So the timpani, there are no tuning changes. Sam, I'm so sorry if that's not the case for a quick look at the score, but I'm pretty sure it's just, yeah, 4 pitches. Ascending from the bottom, 32 inches at a F, then it's A flat, C flat, D natural. And then the crotales, it's just 5 pitches, F, G, A flat, B flat, C flat. Yeah, so you can, yeah, that's it. So you can sort of set up the crotales that way too. I know that it's like, why would I, you know, have just that collection of pitches to sort of help you there? But yeah, no pitch changes or anything like that. But now I can see how the pitch collection is related too, which is, should have done my homework and looked at the score, but yeah.
I think that's one thing that's neat, and maybe like there's room for in further timpani plus writing, is either those like unison pitches or some kind of composite scale where it's like timpani has these notes, like a modular pitched instrument, like multiple crotale bars or multiple Glock notes, having other notes. But that's cool. I think it's funny how it worked out where there's a D in the timpani that isn't on the crotales, but I understand why that is if you're going with like 1 octave here and then trying to put everything in a comfy range on timpani. That's cool.
Yeah, so just on the side of like, we've talked a little bit in the last 2 meetings about like timpani rep in general, and we have Carter, we have John Beck Sonata for timpani, but I do want to give John Beck a little credit. There's this for like being weird with timpani early. Do you guys know the 3 episodes for timpani? Have you guys heard of this piece? So it's like another John Beck timpani solo, but I think it's the second movement requires prepared piano, and like you essentially like open the lid or like take the lid off of a piano, put the pedal all the way down, and I think you prepare some notes and you like play timpani and the piano picks up on the resonance, and like it's like actually really sick. I don't know. I just like the idea of like timpani interacting with like a pitch collection reminded me of this. I have the score for this piece like right over here on my printer. I should look at that later, but I won't make you listen to timpani rep 3 weeks in a row. So maybe we'll bring it out like I'll do it for my birthday in April or something, but yeah. Any other thoughts about Sam's piece or Tiffany or?
I think also just, we talked about this last time with the 2 drum etudes not all being tuned 5-1. I appreciate that this is tuned to a diminished chord. Just pedagogically cool to play something that isn't just bing bong 5-1.
Absolutely. If there's anything else, I mean, we can always circle back later, I guess. But all right, Clay, you're up. Let's talk about some Gene Kaczynski.
All right, cool. So this is the piece that I submitted for this week, and So the Wind Blew by Gene Kaczynski. I'm gonna try to do the presenting thing. Share my- All right. Can we see everything okay?
Yes.
All right, and then can we hear it? We go like, oh, oops.
So no, we cannot hear. We can't even hear the ad. So make sure
Okay.
you hit that share audio tab if you did
All right.
not.
Where is it?
So hit stop.
Also,
Stop presenting. Okay.
Yeah.
Stop. Okay.
And then when you initially go to share your tab, in the bottom left-hand corner, there should be a thing that says share tab audio. Or at least that's what it says on my computer.
I'm also on a Mac, so that might be a little different. Hold on, I'm trying
also
to see.
YouTube is muted.
YouTube. Oh. Can we hear that?
No, but Clay,
No.
I can share it
Okay.
if you'd like.
Yeah, that might be easier.
So where do you want me to start in the recording?
So I have like 3 little 1-minute clips. I hope that's okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so if we do start at, I think 1 minute in and play just about a minute of it.
All right. You guys can hear that?
Yep.
Great.
That's probably good for that first chunk.
All right.
And then, yeah, and I just want to know like how many like freaking wind chimes he has set up. I think, and he doesn't really even like use all of them. I feel like he just sets them all up so it feels like a really big setup, which I think is cool. I like the effect of it. But anyways, you can go. I think the next one is 13 minutes in, and same thing. Just let it play for a little bit. Oh.
In 2024,
Oh my gosh.
April 8th, there will be a total eclipse crossing all north.
Yeah. And then last one I think is like, I think it's 18 minutes or maybe like 18 minutes 15 seconds. All right, and that's good. Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to get the pitch bending on the vibraphone, and it like goes past the center of the bar and it pitches back up. I thought that was so cool. Yeah, this is just like, I love this piece so much. It's on the bucket list. I want to play it. It's so cool. Yeah. So anyone thoughts on it or?
I played this one with Sam Scherer on his master's recital
Okay.
a couple years ago.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, you're totally right. Gene Kaczynski does not use half of those wind chimes. I think we got
Yeah.
away with only having like 3 or 4,
Mhm.
and even that was like too much.
Mhm.
And just like for fun, we looked up the chimes that he used in the piece, and they're like specially made, and they're like
Mhm.
$700.
Oh
It's
my God.
ridiculous. So I think we ended up just cutting pipes, and it sounds exactly the same. But yeah, it's a really fun piece. It's not too like the most time I think I spent rehearsing it with Sam was just lining up the ba da da dum dum da 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 dum, doing that part. But everything other than that, it's like it's very sight readable. It's very enjoyable by lots of different people. You can really pull out a lot of different timbres from the instruments, which I think a lot of people is going to find interesting. So it's like this is definitely a piece that I want to play again with somebody else. Also because like the setup is so small too. You don't need to like own a lot of things to be able to play this for people, and I think it just works for a lot of different venues. So
I'm sorry, you said that's a small setup, and I'm just gonna call you on
no,
your
it's really not that
frickin'
bad.
bullshit.
Oh, and then we also used I forget the name of the handheld little shaker thing that he uses in the piece, but I think we ended up using just like some sticks that we found at Guitar Center,
Mhm.
and they work just as well.
I think it's a
Yeah.
sistrum, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I look for it.
There's 2 things what was I gonna say about this? Zach, I'm curious, were they wind chimes from Woodstock? The Woodstock company?
I don't remember.
Do you guys know the lore behind like the Woodstock Chime Company? So Woodstock Chime Company is out of New York, I think, and it's owned by Gary from Nexus/Black Earth. So yeah, he makes wind chimes and is like an amazing percussionist, chamber musician, legend, and really nice guy. Actually, if you ever have questions about pipe tuning, there's a Lou Harrison piece for tuned metal pipes that Joseph Gramley has an awesome recording of, and Gary has like specific measurements for that piece. But yeah, anyway, I love this Gene Kaczynski chart because it's kind of emblematic of Gene Kaczynski for me, where he's like he's so imaginative in like what he does as a percussion composer. And I think even just like I'm like looking and I'm like, how are you playing all these like hanging chimes like that and like not messing up? I mean, I know it's a produced recording, whatever. And then I'm looking at the stand and I'm like, oh, there's a little device that's keeping them from like knocking into each other and from like being abrasive. So it's always like this meditative, like you just finished a episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender and you're like so zen from the like credit music. I only say that because I ate ramen last night and it was on the TV at the ramen place. It was great. But yeah, like it's so creative and imaginative and like transformative of like this thing that just hangs out on a tree for so many people. Like if my mom saw that piece, she would lose her mind. And the harmonic language, last thing I'll say, reminds me how much I love his marimba concerto with choir. If you guys haven't heard that piece, it's so good. It's great. All right, I'm done.
A couple assorted thoughts on this. For people looking for like wind chimes on a budget, Joanne Fabrics, I got a $70 like big set of wind chimes for like 60% off at their end of summer sale. So check your local Joanne Fabrics and get the app so you can get the rewards, because that's also where I get my trap table felt. Like I went there to get trap table felt to make travel trap tables, and I left with a set of wind chimes. But they're really nice, and not hundreds of dollars, especially with deals in the app. I'll shut up about that. The other thing too, this really reminded me of, so Dave Hall has a piece after Christopher Dean called Eclipsed, if you guys know that one. And similar vibes, except smaller setup, and intentionally like some of the wind chime language is just like pushing it and letting it go. And that was a really funny one to experience because I was in school at Nebraska when he was writing it. And so I would just be like in a practice room kind of late at night, and he would, or like in the rehearsal room, and he would like walk in at 9 p.m. and just like grab a vibraphone, and then I would hear wind chimes for the next hour. But I also wonder, I guess, Zachary, about the notation of this piece, because it almost seems like it could be written in shorthand with like ba 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 boom ba 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 with like an arrow for the next 3 minutes, and it feels improvisational, and I can tell that it is thoughtfully composed, and there's moments of alignment, but so much of it seems like it could be. So I'm just wondering notationally, because like it's an 18-minute piece, is it like a million pages or is it more gestural?
No, I think it's surprisingly written out, more than you would expect, but on both ends of the piece, it's all pretty improvisational. Oh Lord, I can't say that. But yeah, like the beginning, like the opening notes on either. So it's like it starts with all the wind chimes, and then the vibraphone and the guitar-les kind of play back and forth. It's just, play the notes in this succession, however much you feel like, and then eventually we land on the music. And I think I thought I had the music scanned. I was looking for it on my laptop, but I guess I don't. I don't know what I did with it, but I don't know. It wasn't too bad. I think it ended up being like 11 pages or something like that. And there's enough like time where this was before I had an iPad too. And I think I managed to figure out a way to have it all laid out. And then during some of the big transitions of the piece where I had time to page turn, I would change like 3 at a time. So I only actually had to flip pages like twice, I think.
Oh, he might have disappeared. Oh, maybe not.
Okay.
Oh,
cool.
there you are.
But yeah, I mean that was just about it. Yeah, that little ostinato part in the middle is actually all written out, which is kind of nice because you can really clearly see how the melody line over top plays against like when the melody is in the wind chimes and the guitar-les, but then the ostinatos and the vibe and the bowls, you can see how they are supposed to line up with each other, which makes it pretty easy to be able to like read the score and play it at the same time.
Yeah. So is it in score notation? Like
Yeah.
you can you see the other player's part. Okay. I liked that.
Yeah. Both parts are like double staved.
Gotcha.
So like I played the drums and guitar-les part. So on the bottom it would have the bowls, and then on the top it had the guitar-les, and then vice versa.
I played as one, and it has that. Yeah. Yeah. I like it when, for something that's like so intricate and interdependent like that. That's nice. So sorry, Hannah, I cut you off.
It's okay. I was gonna say that ostinato part really reminds me of Mark Duggan's music, and I assume that's the gamelan influence that Gene talks about in the program notes. But I was wondering, so where does "And So the Wind Blew" come from? Because it's in quotations, so I assume it's from either like a piece of literature or something somebody said.
I think he dedicated it to, it was, oh man, I can't remember. But it was the tsunami that happened in Japan, I think in 2014. I think the piece was dedicated to the victims of that. So I think that's where a lot of like the pentatonicism kind of comes from, is its influence from that. But I don't know. I don't remember where I read that. It might have been in the beginning of the score. I don't know if that's online anywhere.
Shoot, there we go. I also have to say the maraca hanging from the string on the cymbal stand, that was a life-changing moment when I realized what that was. That's really smart. I'm gonna have to implement that if I ever
Yeah,
need to.
if only you were about to spend a lot of time with the person that played that part in an applied lesson setting. Oh wait. Yeah, if you guys didn't know, Hannah's going to Hart School, and that's Ben Tove. So yeah, I think this is also, I said the thing about how this is kind of just, this is like Gene in a nutshell, it seems like, as far as a percussion composer. I think this is also like, I feel like I'm going to use this as an example. If a student is like, why do I need to own 30 pairs of mallets? Like, what is like picking the right like mallet or the right snare drum? Like, why do I have a Pearl Philharmonic and a like Gretsch Catalina Club snare drum that are the same size or whatever? Like, what is the importance of like having multiple instruments and having multiple sounds to pick from? And then it's like, look at this. Like, can you, like, that's the most, it's like super thoughtful and like picking sounds, picking implements, picking instruments, and gesture as well. Like, we can go down a rabbit hole of how it's like a thoughtful piece of music, but even just like how often they're like switching a mallet. It's like, no, this note has to be, I have to play it with this Anders 15 mallet, and then this one has to be the James Ross Red, and this one has to be a chopstick or a chime mallet. Like, it's great. I just hate changing mallets and I always make a lot of noise, so I avoid that. But yeah.
I'm genuinely surprised that you haven't drawn this back to a Christopher Dean piece yet.
Which one did you have in mind?
The one with the pitch bends on vibraphone.
Oh, well, Morning Dove Sonnet has that, and the other vibraphone piece, Apocryphal Still Life. Is that him, or is yeah?
Yeah.
And if you want to talk about multiple implements, and honestly, I think I'm going to propose that we listen to this one next time, based on Hannah's chime submission. But A Robe of Orange Flame is his piece for Thunder. You know this chart? I bought it at PASIC as soon as I saw it. Yeah. That piece is incredible. But also kind of like, again, like being thoughtful about producing sounds and like what implement will get the job done. For those of you that don't know A Robe of Orange Flame, it's for solo Thunder Sheet, and I will talk about it later.
It's 30 minutes long of solo Thunder Sheet, which you walk in and you're like expecting to have to hold on and survive this, but then it's the most magical thing you've ever seen.
And the story behind its composition is beautiful, and the story of the premiere is kind of hilarious because it was written for a PASIC showcase concert. Yeah, the Sea of Clouds one is also really funny too.
I was gonna say another thing, the mayonnaise scroll opening of Dean's piece, where you blow into the the resonators. That would totally fit in this context. I wonder if Christian ever thought of that when writing this.
It's all about. I think that's the comparison that should have been made. Because Mana Scroll is all about creating a a scene, right? You're in the catacombs of Rome, and this is about creating a scene of wind blowing across. Well, I should say wind across mountains, but I think that's Keiko Abe. But that it's about imagery, right? And it's powerful when it's done correctly, as in this piece in Manuscripts. So
Another idea that I just wanted to like shout out that I've seen done before, which might be super cool if somebody's played this. I don't know if any of you have seen this, where people use a fan on stage, just like a desktop fan blowing onto wind chimes. Especially if you get like those fancy like Dyson, ones that don't make noise, or like I don't know how they work or whatever. But where you like start off stage and then like secretively turn on the fan or have the fan hidden so the audience can't see it, and then the wind chimes like magically start sounding, and then you walk on and that sort of thing. This could, it might work programmatically with this, like depending on what comes before or after.
I'm gonna steal that, just like 100,000,000%, because I just wrote a band piece that starts off with scrubbed bass drum with a brush as like a wind machine substitute and wind chimes, and it's supposed to be about rain. And one of the big things I've been thinking about is like how to get those big wind chimes not to like clunk when they start. So honestly, like fan on wind chimes I will be using. So thank you for that.
The last thing I'll say about wind chimes and percussion ensemble, back to the Woodstock conversation. Hannah, I know you've played it, but Woodstock Sonata by Peter Shickley. Do you guys know this chart? I want to say it's like a Nexus like commission or something that they played. I know Simpatico has played it in the past. The first movement's great. The second movement is very different, and I think it's supposed to start with solo vibes and literally like wind chimes like all across the recital hall. I can't remember how we did it when I played it at USC, and how Simpatico did it, but it's Woodstock Sonata is a great piece and obviously influenced by the Woodstock chimes thing, but you guys should check that out.
There's one more solo wind chimes piece. I don't remember the title or composer, so this is like not super helpful. But I know my friend Connor Beats played it on his recital at IU this past year. And I think Todd Meehan recently played it, and maybe like in his yard during pandemic time, where it's like you're literally just like walking around hitting different wind chimes for like 30 minutes.
Is it really long?
Yeah.
Do you wear a costume when you play it?
I don't know, but I guess you could.
So a long time ago, I took a Russian music history class and stumbled upon this like random piece of music that sounds like that. However, I'm not sure if that's the case. And it's like, yeah, you like create like a costume that's full of bells and you like walk around and like hit wind chimes and like hanging medals. But maybe I'm thinking of something else. Sorry.
That sounds right. I'm like really trying to figure out how to do some Yoko Ono compositions at High Point for percussion ensemble. And this is unrelated, but on the subject of like costumes and moving around, I really want to do bicycle piece for orchestra. And the instructions are ride a bicycle everywhere you can in the concert hall. Don't make any noise, which I think would be fun. But I think I'm going to get some pushback from like admin on bicycle riding. But if you guys have seen, I was just hanging out with my nephew a couple of weeks ago, and he's like 3 years old, and he has a little bike that doesn't have pedals. It just has like wheels, and then you like Flintstones walk with it to drive it. I need to find like adult size versions of that for bicycle piece. Just on the subject of things around a concert hall making noise or not.
I'm going to scour the internet for this piece where you wear literally like a freaking costume. And there's like a video of some guy doing it on like a recital hall stage, and it's like 40 minutes long. And I'll send it to you and you can listen to it or not. But yeah. Any other thoughts on Gene Kaczynski's piece or wind chimes or anything? Cool.
I think it'd be neat to see like a footprint composition for some of Gene's pieces because they're always so inventive. I'm thinking like the kalimba and snare drum piece. It's always like, I want to hear 5 other composers write for this setup with kind of everything that he does.
Yeah, I think like the issue that I've heard from someone else describe Gene's compositions as gimmicky. Let it be known that I am not saying that they are gimmicky. For those that are listening to this video, and Benson, don't say anything to Gene because you're a Delaware. But I wonder if it would like float into that realm quickly if there was five other ones, but also like if we have 5 pieces for snare drum and kalimba, I'm sure there's like a lot of unique takes that can be done. And I mean, no 2 kalimbas are the same. One of mine is from the thrift store and the other one isn't. So, you know.
I like gimmicky as a like non-judgmental thing because also like Morning Dove Sonnet, gimmicky, Vespertine Formations, gimmicky, and like Game Changers. Also, the pieces
exactly.
9 Bells by Tom Johnson.
9 Bells, Tom Johnson. Okay. Sick.
That is the chime piece that I was thinking of.
So I'll find the Russian/Slavic composer one too. All right. So we're about at like an hour and a half of discussion. So this was great, y'all. And thank you to Hannah and Clay and Lewis for presenting. For those of you that
And Joseph.
Well, anyway, for those of you that are watching the recording, if you want to submit anything to talk about, it can be a piece for like somebody wearing a costume walking through a set of chimes. It can be Yellow After the Rain. Like if you really want to know what 9 people on a call or 8 people on a call have to say about Yellow After the Rain and Mitch Peters, like we can talk about it. Also, if you just want to talk about Manus Scroll or Almost Perpetual Torque or whatever Christopher Dean piece, that's fine too. But please submit things because like this is how we learn, right? I mean, we all know so many of the same pieces, but we also have like unique voices and unique experiences that can help our community. So just want to encourage you to submit stuff for discussion. Even if you're like, hey, I just want to talk about why I like Sayeda more than I like Canaries. Like we could talk about that. I could talk about that for like 15 minutes, but yeah. So thank you for joining the call and
Can I add?
being a part of. Yeah, I'm wrapping up. So yeah, go ahead.
Just add one thing. If you submit something, don't think that means that you have to present on it. If you do not feel comfortable presenting, Joseph or I can present for you, but still submit the rep because we want to get new pieces.
You can also just lurk and like hang. Like you don't have to talk on the discussion or anything. If you just want to listen, like at the podcast and we're your buddies on NPR, that's fine. Shameless plug NPR. You should pick this up.
National Percussion Radio.
Good God.
New percussion repertoire.
Huh?
New percussion repertoire. NPR.
Yeah. Oh my God, it works. Speaking of that, Hannah, we need to come up with a name for this. So because besides
we'll
percussion repertoire discussion group. So if you guys have any ideas, send us your ideas. But cool. I'm gonna hit stop recording. So thanks y'all that are checking this out online, and then we can sort of just go from there. Okay.
Cool.